my name is Terry Keating, Bonzoleum on YouTube. This is Musicians on the Record with David Ward. Hit it.
1, 2, 3, 4. This is huge, musicians on the record. Bring it on.
But again, there's so many drummers these days that can play so well.
Absolutely.
I mean, regular Joe Blows who make drummers or make videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
These guys are like 15. They kind of play like 83% of how like Weckel played back in 1995. They really do.
Right.
But I don't know how their feel really is. Like I don't know. Like one thing these days about music, since everybody's so used to pre-programmed and click-tracked, and well, we're gonna load it into Pro Tools, so it has to be on a grid.
Right.
The dimension of time, of slightly elastic time, is lost on everybody.
Yes.
Like right at the door when you're about to record, well, time we're going to throw out the window in the sense because it's all going to be at 108 beats per minute.
Right.
Well, one of the tools that musicians use to make music musical is controlling the time a little.
Right.
You know what I mean? You might bring it when you get to a verse. You might just slightly bring the tempo down.
Right.
You get to the chorus, you might bring it up, but then other times you'll just outright change the tempo.
Yes.
Symphonies don't play to click tracks unless they're in a movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but again, it's not a thing where I'm like, I mean, I do play to a click. I mean, I practice to one, to keep splits and stuff up. But I think there's just really something to be said for when you're going to record a song, and depending on the style. There's so many, the music people listen to today, it has been established that, at least as far as everyone's used to it, they're used to it being perfect time. So I'm not saying everybody should suddenly, like all these hip-hops, should suddenly like do it, free form.
Right.
But I mean, there's really nothing to me like a nice take you get when you have a sort of a well-oiled rhythm section that just have a nice take of something.
Well, and that's what Bonham was really also known for and famous for, sometimes behind the beat, sometimes a little bit of ahead of the beat, not necessarily right on track.
Well, and that's something, too, like I said in my videos, I was trying to talk about ahead the beat and behind the beat. Remember, that always has to do, it's relative with whom you're playing to.
Yes.
So if you have a bass player and a guitar player and the drummer's playing just the best, I always say this in the videos, it's like everybody, if you have a room full of 20 people and they're all clapping along to a song, it's going to sound like this.
Yeah.
You have some people that are clapping a little ahead, some right on, and some behind. It'd be like a perfect bell curve, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the 68, 95, 90, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's all relative to who you're playing with. So, if the drummer is just it's just hard to explain. I mean, I have a friend named Ryan, God love him. This guy has such a good sense of time, and he consistently plays like right on and a teeny bit behind the beat. He's like Steve Gadd that way.
Yeah.
When I first met the kid, he bought some drums from me. He was a kid.
Yeah.
And he gave me, here's a cassette of my band, mister, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was listening to it, and he couldn't really play fills or anything, but he was like a metronome, but like a human, like he just had it going on, you know what I mean? I'm thinking to myself, God, man, because I'm so hyperactive and ADD, it's in my nature to want to, it's like, all right, let's play that, let's play the downbeat already,
Right.
You had to work on trying to just really chill, depending on what song you're playing, to try to relax. And,
yes, yeah.
Not just muscle your way through it and rush everything.
That's right. I also noticed recently you were talking about trying out auditioning for a Zeppelin cover band. Can you say a little bit either about that or some of the bands that you have been in? I think other Zeppelin cover bands too.
Well, I was in a band years ago. I had me and some guys put together an original band. What we did is we went out and we found like younger folks, a singer, a guy singer, and then eventually we got a girl singer, and then this guitar player. So it was sort of like our band. We financed it.
Yeah.
And then we got, this talent in. But it was difficult. It was, we financed it. We tried to really do the best we could.
Sure.
but I learned a lot there. The nature of sometimes it's not when you run, it's a business more or less.
Yes.
When you're in business, if you have somebody secretary making calls, you have mechanic working, you can kind of if something happens, you can get rid of them and get another one. Everyone kind of knows how to dial the phone.
Right.
Well, when you have particular talent and their voices or whatever are all over the record, and you're going to do another one, you can't really readily kind of like fire them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't escape and the band is changing. Anyway, so around that time, and it was a good band. We played a lot, and I thought we had really good tunes. And eventually, after it wound down, one of the guys we got in the band, his name was Lou. He was really, really good guitar player, and he had a Led Zeppelin band called Presence, and he was really good. And he really also too was able to emulate the sort of the slight sloppiness of Jimmy Page. But like in the Heartbreaker solo sort of way.
Yeah.
Heartbreaker solo. I mean, it's kind of, when you sort of hear it, your guitar player, like, oh my God, I got to redo that. But it has character. Everything, there's nothing more with music. I mean, when there's character in music, like with a track or when stuff's sequenced, in a certain way, it takes the character out.
Right.
Or at least one dimension of the character.
Yep.
Again, because time is a way to kind of control the emotion.
Yes.
But Lou had this band. And they had this drummer that had been in the band forever, and Lou was always like, "I'd love to have you in it, but he's been in it forever." And I'm like, "Well, that's fine." And finally, one day they had enough of him. They fired him. I played just a couple shows with him, and I remember we played this one show up in Palatine. There's a place called Dirty Nelly's. You know what I mean? And after the show, and there were a lot of people there, and people were calling me like Bonzo.
Wow.
And I was in the wig off, like, "Dude, I'm a middle-aged guy from the suburbs. I'm not John Bonham,
Right.
So I remember peeling all these 20s off to me, and it was like $800. I mean, I'm like, wow, I can get used to this, you know?
Sure.
So eventually their band sort of wound down. Actually, I think their drummer came back.
Okay.
And so I didn't do any, and then I was playing, I had another couple original bands I was playing with. Some really good friends of mine, we had a band, and that eventually sort of wound down because one of the guys in the band was killed in an accident. He was hit. Yeah, it was bad, Wonderful guy. We just finished recording this record, and he and the two songwriters, Murph and Jimmy, these guys wrote all the songs, and it was great because finally these guys were writing tunes that had like hooks in them.
Wow.
It's not that the older songs didn't have hooks, but sometimes musicians will write a 9-minute song that has 3 guitar solos and 7 verses, and there's not a hook.
Right.
But in this record, the guys were putting hooks in it. It was great, but then this accident happened. Yeah. Anyway. So I kind of started making the Zepp video, the Bonham videos, and I was playing with another band. And then I saw that this, God, how did I find out? There's a band that's still around. It's called Kashmir in the Chicago area.
Okay.
Frank is the band leader. Wonderful guy. Yeah. Super duper nice, heartfelt guy. Good musician. I'm sure it's hell for him. I don't know how he keeps the band together. I mean, I don't know how you do that.
Right.
And so I played with them for about a year. But it just got to be a lot because, you drive 70 miles, set up, you wait an hour and a half for the sound check, you do the sound check, then you wait 2.5 hours till you played, and then you play 3. I mean, you do like a 2 or 3 hour set like Zeppelin,
Wow.
And then, like Moby Dick was like the 14th song, like after like Wanton Song and Rock and Roll and these other, you gotta gas.
Yeah, right.
Finally, I just was like, Frank, I love you, dude, I just can't do it anymore, Yeah. So what happened was, then I'm a stay-at-home dad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Years ago, one of the exchanges downtown. I teach lessons and stuff, and I make the videos. But so what happened was a buddy of mine, this fellow Ryan, great drummer, the guy with the Steve Gadd feel.
Yeah.
One day I'm talking to him on the phone. He's like, yeah, by the way, I heard that, this Led Zeppelin, I won't say the name, but this particular, because I didn't mean to inadvertently slam them in the video.
Sure,
I didn't mean it's a slam. I was just relating the story.
Yeah.
That they were looking for a drummer, that their guy left. And I actually then knew the drummer that left, but I didn't realize that was the band he was in. So I contacted him, and I'm like, hey, or I contacted the contact it said on the website, and he got back to me. He's like, Terry, he's like, I've been trying to reach you, man. You and I talked years ago. I really like your videos on YouTube. You'd be perfect for the band. And at this point, he'd left. You know what I mean? So he kind of put me in touch with the guys, and I got an interview or an audition.
Yeah.
But what happened was I think they'd been auditioning for a while.
Yeah.
And I think this fella, God love him, sort of had some clout still with the guys, even though he left. He's like, listen, you got to give this guy an audition.
Yeah.
So I went in there, and I was so excited, and they had these amber Vista lights, and it took me like a half hour to set them up, and they were all sort of, I'm telling them, I'm like, I can install a rail on this if you want. No, it's okay. And then finally I got it all set up, and then like, what should we do? And we did Good Times, Bad Times, but I've been so nervous about. I thought we were going to do like Hot's On for Nowhere or these other obscure tunes. I spent because I only had like 3 days to prep. Oh, maybe like, but because I talked to this fella and then the audition came around.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we had to postpone it. That's why I got a couple extra days. So they wanted to do Good Times, Bad Times. I'm like, oh great. And suddenly they started. I'm like, oh wait a minute, I didn't bring a cowbell. And then I waited the next part before I even went to the cowbell. But then I went into the. I'm like, well, great. I just messed up the intro to Good Times, Bad Times. And then we went through a few other songs. We went through, Half of Achilles and the Nobody's Fault But Mine, and I thought it sounded great.
Yeah.
The guitar player is really good. The singer, Plant's hard to emulate.
Yes.
Even Plant can't do Plant after 1973, really.
Right. Yep.
The bass player was phenomenal. You know what I mean? He was a little cold, though. You know what I mean? Like, he was one of these super talented dudes that just, didn't have a lot to say, So anyway, the audition, I thought, went well. But I knew something was up when I was sitting there. And I said, listen, whether or not I get the gig or not, I said, if you want, I can install a rail consulate on your Amber Vista lights.
Ah.
He said to me, he goes, well, no, it's okay. He'll do it. I remember thinking, well, it's like, Hill. Like, who's Hill? Is Hill the fella that just left, or is it the guy you guys have already picked? But anyway, I did say in all fairness to the guitar player guy, I said, listen, even if I don't get the gig, I really appreciate you guys letting me audition with you, because it'd just be really nice to sit and play some Zeppelin tunes with some folks that really know how to do it. Absolutely. And they did, man. They can play the asses off.
That's
so,
great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, they went with somebody else, and I actually went and saw them down at the House of Blues, and it was great.
Awesome.
You can tell the drummer, he's a good drummer. You can tell he's probably not much of a Zeppelin fan. He's probably familiar with some Zeppelin tunes, but he's doing his best to nail the parts and stuff. And that's all they, in a band like that, that's all you need,
Yes.
But what happened, too, like a week after the audition, I got my appendix perforated.
Oh, no.
So I was like laid up for like a month. So thank God I didn't get the gig. Just wouldn't have been able to play the shows they had scheduled at the House of Blues in January.
The blessing.
It was an ego bruise. You know what I didn't get? It's just kind of like. But I probably wouldn't have been able to take it even if it was.
Right. The blessing in disguise there.
But it was fun. It really was. It would have been great, though. Those guys, they rake in the cash. I just need to start pulling my weight here, bringing in money.
Right.
My skill set, I used to be down in the cattle options at the Merc. They don't do any of that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like a museum.
Yeah.
It's almost like I used to build like perambulators, or like buggy, they don't do that anymore. Wow. So my whole skill set is worthless. So I've been trying to figure out how to like bring some money into the house.
Right.
I'll make the Zeppelin tribute band gig.
Yeah.
I'll make, I don't know, $20,000 a year doing it, you know? But part of the thing is though too, I do have sometimes, like I have a tremor, what they used to call a familial tremor.
Okay.
But now they call it a benign essential tremor.
Okay.
And it mostly affects my left hand.
I see.
And I was saying today, who was I telling that to? Like back in college, back in the partying days, after you're out partying all night, I'd be soup the next day. I literally have to be like, I'm spilling it all over the place.
Yeah.
Certain things on some days, like I can get my buzz roll up pretty good at like all right, we had a song a number of years ago where I wanted to put a nice smooth buzz roll into a crash, right? And for most skilled drummers, it's a cakewalk. Hey, put a buzz roll into the downbeat. Yeah. But for me, I had to spend like 5 minutes before we did the track really doing my buzz roll, so I could sort of really chill my left hand out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's just hard to explain. Like, I mean, you can see, it's like having somebody else's left hand.
Sure.
It is bizarre.
Yeah.
So I have really low blood pressure, which is, I guess, more or less, well, not really low, but it's healthy low.
Okay.
Like on the healthy side of low or the low side of healthy.
Okay.
But they said if beta blockers would probably take care of the shake. But the thing is beta blockers are used to lower your blood pressure.
Yeah, right.
I might make 2 videos where I have nice technique.
Yeah.
But then suddenly there's an in memoriam Bonzoleum video, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just gonna kind of, I think, live without the.
Well, it's not very noticeable on your videos, I can say that. But it sounds like certainly one of the challenges, and drummers, we can have all kinds of physical challenges that come up with playing the drums. Can you also talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've had and have overcome with your show, putting it on YouTube, having some of the lessons, some of the videos?
Well, I didn't have any editing capabilities till finally I realized YouTube a few years ago came out with the YouTube editor.
Yeah.
So I was able to edit some stuff. And then I realized that there was a page you could go to see what songs you could actually get away with putting in videos without getting in trouble.
Yes.
So I was then able about a year ago to start, like I could do Custard Pie by Zeppelin, or at the time I put up a Stairway to Heaven and a Stairway to Heaven Live. Two of them actually, the Stairway to Heaven Lives. But it didn't dawn on me till I was playing along to the track that there's edits in that. So, because what Jimmy Page did is he took, like, the Stairway to Heaven you hear. Well, some of the songs they have in that record are like from 3 different nights that he would take like this 4 seconds and this 30 seconds and this seconds, and he sort of duct tape it together.
Yeah.
But you don't really sort of realize how some of these edits are sort of jarring to the time until you're playing along to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't notice it when you've heard it so many times. But anyway, so I played, but they just took Stairway to Heaven off the list in the past month.
It's really random, isn't it? It seems random what you can play, what you can't play on YouTube for Zeppelin.
Well, I suspect that what happened with the Stairway to Heaven might have had something to do with the lawsuit. I think the lawsuit happened, and then maybe someone at Atlantic or whatever was like, what's the deal here with Stairway to Heaven then? Or maybe we should just double check our stuff. Oh, why we don't want this on YouTube? I don't know. So they didn't take it down. It says this video is not viewable by, and it lists all these countries, which is pretty much the world.
Right.
United States, Zimbabwe, and Svalbard, or whatever the hell it's called. But so that, and it's really neat though. What I'd really like to do would be to play along. I love playing along to drummerless tracks because you really hear what you're playing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times I'd hear these covers when people would do drum covers is they blast the stereo in the room, playing along to it, and it's just this jumble, you can't hear anything.
Right.
And I kind of figured out a way sort of to EQ here where my drums would play, really you'd hear me over what even the drummer was doing.
Okay.
But really drummerless tracks would be great. And there's not a whole lot of them you can choose from.
Yeah, I just saw your Keith Moon, The Who, Won't Get Fooled Again video on a drumless track. That was great.
Well, it's so funny. And then, it's so much fun to play to.
Yeah.
And, but, part of the thing is I probably should... I've never, honest to God, the only times I've ever done something over and over again because I wanted it to be good enough to put on YouTube was, what song was that? And it was a song you wouldn't think. I Won't Get Fooled Again that day maybe 3 times. And I was going to do it a 4th. Because, the I played it, the notes were right, but the drums I hit were totally wrong. But I just thought, screw it, man. People do seem to like sort of the off-the-cuff nature of the videos. Just throw it up.
Yeah.
What would be really great is if you could find, if there were tracks that if I had the headphones on and you could hear everything, including the drums, well, the output would be without their drum, my drum.
Yeah.
Because again, when you don't have a click track,
right.
It's sort of free time. There's certain spots where when you're playing, for example, like The Who, or somebody had sent me, they're like, hey, Terry, I found a Whole Lot of Love drumless. So it's Whole Lot of Love, but it's not, I think it's done, they did it with EQ, like off one of the garage band things.
Okay.
Because it's really kind of swirly, like,
yeah.
But it's almost impossible to play to.
Yeah.
Because, you can't really hear it. Like, that's a thing, too. My ears aren't what they used to be.
Yeah.
A couple covers, a couple tunes, like after I did the live Stairway to Heaven, after the 3rd or 4th time, I can't really hear it. Like, I'd have to wait until the next day then to do it again. So my ears are fresh again so I can really hear what's going on in certain really bass and guitar parts.
Sure.
Then it dawns on you're like, I'm doing major damage to my ears.
Right.
If my ears need a day to recover from that. I'm 47 now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it would be really nice. It would be wonderful if I could get all kinds of these songs. You could feed a drumless into YouTube and then you just hear what I or whatever person wants the people.
Sure. I'm sure that's out there, some technology. We'll keep searching for it.
It's another revenue stream for bands.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Get something for it, you know.
Yeah. So obviously, John Bonham, major influence. I would imagine Keith Moon, because you're doing some Who videos. Who else, drummer-wise, or even just musicians in general, Terry, are your influences?
Well, like the kind of the usual for a lot of people my age, you know, Keith Moon, John Bonham, Stuart Copeland, you know, Phil Collins back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, before in the 80s rolled around, everything was just sort of drum machine-y, you know, boom thud.
Yeah.
He's a monster, man. He can't
is.
play anymore. But you listen to some of that early mid-70s, late 70s Genesis,
Absolutely.
you're like, wow. Or
Yeah.
Brand X, they have a song called Nuclear Burn. I found this cassette 20 years ago, and I just can't believe it's Phil Collins playing the drums.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, Phil Collins is sort of really big on, like, certain rudiments playing beats with, as a lot of guys are, like Los Endos and, you know, a lot of these songs. But it takes a lot of skill to do that, you know?
Yeah.
But I'd say, you know, I really like Pete Townsend. I think he's a great musician.
Sure.
Can't really solo his way out of a paper bag, but he's an incredible musician.
Yeah.
He's also a producer. I mean, he's an incredibly talented guy.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't really have a lot of, you know, people who say, well, you're a musician, what do you got in your record collection? It's like, I have like 11 records, man. Like, you know, I just listen to what's on the radio. I don't really, you know, I've never even really had all the Zeppelin records.
Okay.
I ever owned Zeppelin 2, you know, but you just are familiar with them.
Right. Right. Yeah, you've heard them a million times, right?
Heard them a million times. But that can fool you though too. When you go down sometimes to play a lot. Like I remember the first time I played with the Presence guys, we had a gig. We had 3 rehearsals before the first gig. Remember the fella I said that we're gonna pay the $800?
Yeah.
Well, the first gig we did was at a place called Shark City. It's like a total brawl room, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had three rehearsals. 2 of the rehearsals, everybody just sat and talked about the you know, like the song Kashmir keyboard sound. And then like the 3rd rehearsal, we ran through parts of like Live, Dazed, Confused.
Yeah.
Some were up there in front of, I don't know, 500 people.
Wow.
And he turns around and he's like, all right, well, you know, let's do Immigrant Song. Okay. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, man, God, when was the last time I played Immigrant Song? How many times? It was kind of a nightmare by the end. But people loved it by the time you were done.
Yeah. And
like I remember playing with the Kashmir guys. He turned around and he's like, let's do, what song did he want to do? He talked about doing Hot Song for Nowhere a few times. So I became somewhat familiar with it.
Yeah.
But then we never played it, so I sort of forgot about it. Yeah. Then we're at a show and there's 500 people out the Prince. He's like, all right, Hot Song for Nowhere. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
You're familiar with Hot Song for Nowhere?
Yeah.
There's always like there's little things that happen again and again, but then they're a little different. And does this one happen the second time?
Sure.
When there's 500 people looking at you, you know, I mean, it's like,
right.
I mean, this shake goes to like,
right.
You know, it's hardcore.
In your experience, what are some of the most difficult Bonham songs to play for you, and what are some of the favorite? I won't ask you to pick a favorite, but what are some of the favorites that you have?
One of my favorite Zeppelin tunes and recordings, like all around, is "Trampled Underfoot." It's just beef. It just chugs along. Yeah. You know, the stuff that Bonham does at the end. You know. A couple of those in, and then it's just so beefy, you know. Like "Fool in the Rain" is hard because I think personally, where like I can't seem to. Like sometimes when I play it, if I haven't played it for a long time, I'm so used to playing both feet heel up. Yeah. When that happens, there's a certain balance that I lose. Like if you didn't have to open the hi-hat, it'd be like a. It's easier to do, but since you got to throw that open hi-hat in. Well, I have realized that I have to play heel down both because I have to maintain a control, but I'm just not used to doing that.
Yes. Trying to keep your core and your balance.
But you know what's a really, really hard one to play? Because, you know, sometimes stuff will end up sounding more difficult and ingenious after the fact. Because Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and John Paul Jones, after the basic track was recording, or John Bonham, might have switched certain things around. Right. Like I say this to people, is it For Your Life? What's the Zeppelin tune at the end where it goes, ah? It's people are gonna kill me that I can't remember the name of it. But the way it makes the drums sound like it turns around, but it doesn't. Bonham's playing.
Sick again.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's another classic Jimmy Page Zeppelinism where they do stuff like that, you know. But you know what's really hard? I find Gallows Pole very hard. You know, it's hard to do because you remember John Bonham was who he was as a drummer. He played a certain way.
Yes.
And he had his whole life to play that way. So to emulate somebody, it's not just you're necessarily playing the notes.
Yeah.
There's more to it. Again, when I was talking about like the dimension of time.
Yeah.
You know, there's you have the dimension of the notes you play, of the dynamics you play them, time, how you might slightly slow down and speed up. You know, but even Bonham himself, if he was going to, you know, play along to one of his records, even a half hour later, man, like, wait, what did I do there? Wait, all right, you know. I mean, even stuff you do, you might do some film. Like, wait, how did I do that?
Yes.
You know, but a lot of people spend their lifetime, like that's why it's hard to sometimes put up like Stuart Copeland covers or lessons because there's a lot of Stuart Copeland like disciples that they get really mad, man, if you just don't hit that. It's like, you know, if Stuart Copeland made a video on it, you know, and you put a different mask on him, you'd probably tear him a new asshole too. Right. But wait, Stuart Copeland, you don't realize that sometimes you just can't play it the same way, you know?
That's right. Well, it's one of the things, you know, you mentioned Fool in the Rain, and obviously that's essentially the Purdy Shuffle that Bonzo and Jeff Porcaro took and made their own. It's one of the things I love about John Bonham and Zeppelin, that, you know, the recorded tracks in the studio album, they improvised a ton when they were playing live. It wasn't just playing to the click track, and they made it breathe and live, right?
Yeah, exactly, like the opposite of Rush, kind of. Not that Rush could never do it, but they just didn't.
Sure. Right.
And I think as time went on, you know, they started to. But I mean, it was like, you know, a lot of bands do that, but Zeppelin really seemed to like excel at it and do a really good job.
Yeah, absolutely. You know?
I mean, especially on nights when they were on.
Right.
Because Zeppelin was off. Right. It was the 70s and there was drug use. When they were off, they were off. Yeah. When they were on, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. No other band like it. Do you also, before we wrap up, I'd love to have you play a little bit, but also if people want to check out your YouTube channel and videos, and I think you also have a CD as well. Can you tell people of how they can get? Well,
I recorded this 5 years ago, so it's my own tunes again. I had been in bands, you know, when you're in so many bands that have like 9-minute songs that have 7 verses. 3 guitar solos and no chorus. I thought to myself, you know, I'm just going to write freaking 10 songs that are between 3 and 5 minutes, that have a chord, that have a hook, that have 3 verses, you know, like the standard stuff. And I did. But what I did was I sort of, in this case, because it was just easier to do, I sort of striped the basic core rhythm bed of the song on something called Fruity Loops, which was just sort of something that I had. I then loaded that. I brought that to the studio. Did all the vocals first. I did all the harmonies first, then the lead vocals, then put the drums over that, and then had bass and other stuff put over that.
Wow.
But it was very, very time-consuming, and a lot of the songs turned out a lot more lo-fi than I wanted them to.
Okay, bummer.
Certain way, a couple of those songs are still rough, sketchy, but one of the songs, there's a fella here in Chicago named Richard Milne on WXRT, which is a big station in Chicago, that played the third song called In My Heart on the radio a couple times.
Awesome.
Which was really, really nice. You know, now it's a local show, but he has a thing, you know, so like on Sunday at 7, you know, he normally plays that stuff. But on mine, he sort of threw it in kind of the regular rotation during the week, which was nice. Like there were some people calling me like, hey, man, I was listening to XRT and REM stopped. I heard some guy talk for 5 seconds and suddenly, and he's like, and this is Terry Keating with, they were like, you know what I mean?
That's great.
You know, I'm like, yeah. So I probably have sold maybe 400 of them.
Wow, great.
I have 600 left. So I'm just, people on YouTube sometimes are like, hey, you know, is there anything I can, you know, is there something I wish I could? I'm like, well, you know what? You can buy my CD. I'll sign it for you if you want
it. And where can people go and buy that, Terry?
Well, I'm selling them on eBay, on my eBay page.
Okay.
Seller's name is Kingish, Kingish. But yeah, and then I'm just trying to sell a lot of my gear now too, again, to sort of just declutter. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So what you're saying is your CD is pretty hot on the black market. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm big in, I'm big in Paraguay. No, but I just, it's one of those things where I do think the song ideas I thought were really good. I actually can sing. I'd rather not. Like I'd never ever stand out in front of the stage, not even sit back and sing. I just would rather not. In fact, I didn't even intend to have my voice on that. I was just going to use my voice if I got a singer and say, you're going to sing exactly what I sing.
Okay. But
I figured, I'll just forget it. I'll just leave my voice on there. So
okay. So I won't ask you to sing then, but I would love, if you're willing, any Bonham tune that you would love to play us out with. That would be so great. Terry Keating, thank you so much for being on Musicians on the Record.
Down the track.